The hologram flickered in the dimly lit conference room of the United Earth Space Command, casting an ethereal blue glow across Director Maya Patel's face. The being on the other end, a crystalline entity representing the Galactic Competition Council, had just finished explaining what could only be described as the most absurd invitation humanity had received since joining the galactic community. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Maya said, her dark eyes reflecting the shimmering light. "You want Earth to participate in what amounts to an interstellar survival competition across the deadliest planets in known space?" "Affirmative, Director Patel," the crystalline being replied, its form shifting like liquid glass. "The Galactic Extreme Environment Olympics occurs once every 50 years. Species from across the known universe compete to demonstrate their survival capabilities in increasingly challenging environments." Maya fought back a smile. After decades of being treated like delicate creatures by the galactic community, this was exactly the opportunity Earth had been waiting for. "And these environments include what you classify as Deathworlds?" "Indeed. Though I must warn you, no species has ever survived beyond a Class 9 environment. Classes 10 through 15 remain theoretical challenges, included merely for completeness." Maya didn't bother hiding her grin this time. She'd grown up in the volcanic research stations of Mercury's Caloris Basin, where morning temperatures could melt lead. "We'll need 3 days to assemble our team." The crystalline being's form rippled in what Maya had learned to recognize as surprise. "Director, most species take months to prepare. 3 days, Maya repeated firmly. "Now, about the rules, are there any restrictions on what we can bring?" Within hours, Maya had assembled what she considered the perfect team. In the UESC's primary briefing room stood 4 individuals who represented humanity's extraordinary ability to adapt and thrive in conditions that should, by all regular metrics, be uninhabitable. Marcus Wong, veteran of the Martian dust storm crisis of 2157, stood examining the standard-issue environmental suits provided by the Council. His weathered face cracked into a smile as he held one up. These wouldn't last 10 minutes in a Category 3 storm on Mars. Beside him, Dr. Elena Volkov, the architect behind humanity's first successful Venus Cloud City, was already sketching modifications on her tablet. Her prosthetic right arm, lost during the early Venus expeditions, moved with fluid precision as she worked. The material composition is interesting, but their approach to environmental protection is quaint. Zara Bennett, champion of extreme sports and the first human to successfully pilot a glider through Jupiter's Great Red Spot, was practically bouncing with excitement. "Please tell me we can bring our own equipment. I've got some ideas about surfing quantum gravity waves." The 4th member of the team, Dr. James "Wild Jim" Okonjo, sat quietly in the corner, his dark fingers tracing patterns on the surface of his worn field notebook. As Earth's leading xenobiologist specializing in extreme environment adaptation, he'd spent more time on Deathworlds than most people had spent on Earth. "The rules are simple," Maya addressed the team. "Each challenge takes place on a progressively more hostile world. We have to demonstrate not just survival, but the ability to establish a functional presence. The Council has provided us with what they consider essential survival gear." She gestured to the pile of environmental suits and basic equipment. "And what we consider essential gear?" Elena asked, a mischievous glint in her eye. Maya's smile widened. "As long as it's our own technology, we can bring whatever we want." The Council, in their wisdom, assumed no species would want to bring anything beyond basic survival equipment to these environments. Wild Jim finally looked up from his notebook. "They really don't understand humans at all, do they?" "No," Maya agreed, "they don't. Which is exactly why we're going to show them something they've never seen before. We're not just going to survive these death worlds, we're going to live on them. Thrive on them. Maybe even have a little fun while we're at it." The next 3 days were a flurry of preparation, though not the kind the Council might have expected. While other species conducted survival drills and emergency protocols, Earth's team was loading up with equipment that looked more suited for an extreme sports expedition than a survival competition. On the morning of their departure, the Council's representative returned for a final check-in. The crystalline being observed with evident confusion as the team loaded their ship with what appeared to be recreational equipment alongside their survival gear. Director Patel, it communicated, its form flickering with concern, "Are you certain your team understands the serious nature of this competition? The first challenge alone takes place on a world with atmospheric pressure 60 times that of Earth." Maya watched as Zara carefully secured what was unmistakably a modified surfboard designed for atmospheric riding. "Oh, we understand perfectly. In fact, I have just one question: are there any rules against having fun while we compete?" The being's form stuttered, clearly not programmed for such queries. No. Historically, the environments have been so challenging that the concept of fun has never been relevant to the competition. "Perfect," Maya replied, already imagining the chaos they were about to unleash on the galaxy's carefully ordered understanding of survival. "In that case, we're ready to proceed." As their ship prepared for departure, Maya looked at her team, each member representing humanity's unique approach to challenging environments. They weren't just going to survive these death worlds, they were going to transform them into their playground. And maybe, just maybe, teach the galaxy a thing or two about what it really means to be human. The massive transport ships descended through clouds that could dissolve standard hull plating, approaching what the Galactic Council had designated as a Class 5 death world. While other species teams huddled in their reinforced environmental chambers, Earth's representatives were busy setting up what looked suspiciously like a beach party in their ship's cargo bay. "Atmospheric pressure reading at 60 times Earth standard," announced the ship's AI. "Surface temperature averaging 482 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric composition primarily carbon dioxide with high concentrations of sulfuric acid." Dr. Elena Volkov looked up from her equipment checks, smirking. "Sounds like a typical day on Venus. Actually, a bit milder." She adjusted the settings on her customized environmental suit, a sleek design that looked more like sportswear than survival gear. "The other teams are going to think we're insane," Marcus Wong commented, carefully packing what appeared to be a portable grill into their deployment pod. "Did you see the Arcturians? They're triple sealing their suits just to step out of their ships." While Jim Okonjo was already studying the preliminary sensor data with intense interest. Can you blame them? Most species evolved on worlds with stable conditions. They never had to adapt to extreme variations like Earth's history forced us to. He paused, squinting at a particular reading. "Though I must say, those crystalline formations in the southern hemisphere look fascinating." Zara Bennett burst into the cargo bay, practically vibrating with excitement. "You won't believe what I just saw from the observation deck. The planet's upper atmosphere has perpetual lightning storms, and the wind patterns." She pulled up a holographic display, pointing to swirling patterns of deadly gases. "We could totally ride these currents." "Absolutely not," Maya interjected, entering the bay. Then, after a pause, she added with a slight smile, "At least not until we've established our base camp and completed the primary mission objectives." The ships landed on a relatively stable plateau of metallic rock, and the competition officially began. While other species frantically deployed their protective domes and emergency shelters, the human team calmly unloaded their equipment. Elena's modified atmospheric processors, based on her Venus colony designs, quickly created a breathable bubble around their landing zone. Marcus and Wild Jim worked together to set up what they called their Extreme Environment Recreation Center, a series of interconnected structures that looked more like a luxury resort than a survival shelter. "Environmental stabilization at 95%, Elena announced, checking her readings. "Atmosphere within our zone is now comparable to Earth's tropics, though I'd still recommend lightweight protective gear when venturing outside the immediate area." The first alien observers approached their camp cautiously. The Meridians, silicon-based life forms known for their cautious nature, watched in bewilderment as Zara set up what appeared to be a volleyball court. "Excuse our intrusion," the Meridian team leader communicated through their translator, "but our sensors indicate you've established recreational facilities in a Class 5 death world." "Of course." Zara beamed, adjusting the net. "No point in surviving if you can't enjoy yourself, right? Would you like to learn how to play? We can modify the rules to account for your crystalline structure." The Meridian's confusion was palpable, but curiosity won out. Within hours, their camp had become a hub of interspecies activity. Elena ran workshops on atmospheric modification, showing other teams how to adapt their technology to work with the planet's conditions rather than against them. Marcus's cooking station, protected by specialized force fields, became a gathering point where species shared survival techniques over what he called extreme environment cuisine. Wild Jim's discoveries proved particularly revolutionary. He found that the local crystalline formations, which other teams had dismissed as hazards, could be used to enhance communication and energy collection. These structures, he explained to a fascinated group of alien scientists, have evolved to thrive in these conditions. By studying and adapting their properties, we can turn what seems hostile into something useful. The council observers watched in growing amazement as the human approach began to influence other teams. The Arcturians, initially sealed away in their protective domes, gradually began modifying their structures to include observation areas. The Meridians, inspired by human adaptability, started experimenting with ways to incorporate local materials into their survival systems. But it was Zara who truly captured the galaxy's attention. Using her modified atmospheric glider, she demonstrated how the planet's deadly storms could be navigated and even harnessed for energy. Videos of her riding the lightning-charged winds, protected by Elena's advanced shielding technology, went viral across galactic networks. "This is unprecedented," one council observer remarked to Maya, watching as a group of various species gathered for what the humans called a Death World Derby, a carefully controlled race through one of the more stable storm systems. "Your team isn't just surviving, you're transforming a Class 5 environment into a vacation resort," Maya suggested with a grin. "That's what humans do. We don't just adapt to survive, we adapt to live. Every hostile environment is just another opportunity to expand our definition of habitable." As the first phase of the competition drew to a close, the human team had not only achieved the highest survival and adaptation scores in the competition's history, they'd fundamentally changed how other species viewed deadly environments. Their base camp had evolved into a thriving outpost, complete with research facilities, recreation areas, and the galaxy's first extreme environment sports center. "Ready for the Class 6 challenge?" Maya asked her team as they prepared for the next phase. "I hear it's got quantum fluctuations and temporal distortions." Zara's eyes lit up. "Time-warped obstacle courses?" "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Elena cautioned, though she was already sketching designs for temporal stabilization fields. "But, maybe pack the anti-gravity frisbees, just in case." The galaxy was beginning to realize that they had severely underestimated humanity's approach to hostile environments. It wasn't just about their technology or their physical adaptability, it was their inexplicable ability to find joy and opportunity in conditions that should inspire only fear and survival instincts. As their ship lifted off for the next challenge, leaving behind a transformed death world and a changed galactic perspective, one thing became clear: humans weren't just surviving these deadly worlds, they were conquering them with smiles on their faces and games in their hearts. The Class 7 Challenge world hung in space like a fractured mirror, its surface constantly shifting and reforming under the influence of quantum storms and temporal distortions. Even from orbit, the planet's unstable nature was evident. Regions where time moved at different speeds were visible as rippling waves across the surface, while quantum fluctuations caused entire mountains to exist in multiple states simultaneously. In the observation deck of the human team's ship, while Jim Okonjo pressed his hand against the reinforced viewport, his usual calm demeanor replaced by visible awe. In all my years studying extreme environments, I've never seen anything like this. The laws of physics themselves are breaking down there. Half of our sensing equipment is giving us error readings, Elena reported, frowning at her displays. The other half is showing data that shouldn't be possible. We're detecting areas where gravity reverses every few seconds, zones where time runs backwards, and regions where matter exists in quantum superposition. Maya studied the readouts with intense concentration. For the first time since the competition began, she felt genuine concern. This wasn't just a hostile environment, it was an environment that defied the very rules of reality they relied on for survival. The Council has reported that no team has ever established a successful presence on a Class 7 world, she informed her team. Most attempts end in emergency evacuation within the first hour. 3 species have already withdrawn from this phase of the competition. Marcus looked up from his modified equipment. So we'll be the first. We just need to approach this the way humans always have, one impossible problem at a time. The team spent the next 24 hours preparing for what might be humanity's greatest survival challenge yet. Elena and Wild Jim worked together to modify their environmental systems to account for temporal shifts. Marcus developed new anchoring technologies that could maintain stability in fluctuating gravity fields. Zara, for once, was quiet, meticulously checking and rechecking her safety systems. As they prepared for descent, the Council's representative appeared on their communication screen. We feel obligated to inform you that survival on this world is considered theoretically impossible. The quantum instabilities alone. Thank you for your concern, Maya interrupted politely. But humans have a long history of doing the impossible. We'll proceed as planned. Their landing craft punched through layers of reality-warped atmosphere, each level presenting new and bizarre challenges. Temporal eddies caused alarms to sound before the dangers they were warning about occurred. Quantum fluctuations had the ship existing in multiple positions simultaneously. Elena's modified navigation system, incorporating principles from quantum computing, somehow kept them on track. Landing zone identified, she announced, her prosthetic arm moving in blur as she made split-second adjustments. It's a region where the quantum fluctuations form a relatively stable pattern. We should have about 20 minutes before the next major reality shift. They touched down in what appeared to be a valley, though the mountains around them occasionally flickered between different possible configurations. The team moved quickly, deploying their equipment with practiced precision. This time, there were no beach chairs or volleyball nets. Every piece of gear had been carefully designed to help them survive in this reality-bending environment. Quantum anchor points established, Marcus reported, activating a network of devices that created a bubble of relatively stable spacetime around their landing zone. We've got about 100 meters of workable area. Wild Jim was already taking readings of the surrounding environment, his specialized sensors attempting to make sense of the chaos around them. The quantum fluctuations aren't random, he announced suddenly, excitement creeping into his voice. There's a pattern, like a pulse. If we can synchronize our systems with it. Elena caught on immediately. We could ride the quantum waves instead of fighting them. Just like surfing a tide. She looked at Zara, who was grinning widely. Now you're thinking like a human, Zara said, already pulling up models of the quantum pulses. Over the next few hours, the team did what humans had always done when faced with impossible situations. They adapted, innovated, and occasionally broke a few laws of physics. Elena and Wild Jim developed a system to predict and utilize the temporal fluctuations, turning what should have been a devastating handicap into a tool for efficiency. Marcus found ways to store supplies in quantum superposition, effectively multiplying their resources. But it was Zara who made the breakthrough that would change everything. Working with the patterns Wild Jim had identified, she discovered that the quantum fluctuations could be used for transportation. By carefully timing their movements with the pulses of unstable reality, they could effectively surf from one stable zone to another. It's not just about surviving here, she explained to the astonished council observers who had come to check on them. It's about understanding that chaos itself can be a resource if you know how to use it. The human base became a testament to their species' unique approach to impossible challenges. Instead of trying to create a completely stable environment, they built a dynamic settlement that moved and shifted with the quantum pulses. Their structures existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, and their transportation systems utilized temporal distortions to cover vast distances almost instantly. Other competing species watched in amazement as the humans not only survived but began to master their environment. Some even requested training in the humans' quantum surfing techniques, leading to the first-ever quantum rodeo, a carefully controlled competition to ride the reality waves. "I don't understand," a council observer admitted to Maya as they watched a group of mixed species learning to navigate the temporal eddies. "This world breaks every rule of physics we know. It should be impossible to survive here, let alone turn it into an opportunity for innovation." Maya finished. "That's the thing about humans. We don't just accept the rules of reality, we learn them so well that we can work with them, bend them, sometimes even break them. Every impossible situation is just another puzzle waiting to be solved." As the Class 7 challenge drew to a close, the human team had achieved more than just survival. They had proven that even in an environment where reality itself was unreliable, human ingenuity and adaptability could find a way to thrive. Their success sent shockwaves through the galactic community, forcing many species to reconsider their fundamental assumptions about what was possible. "Ready for Class 8? Maya asked her team as they prepared to leave their quantum-shifted base camp. "Actually," Elena replied, looking up from her latest calculations, "I have some ideas about using quantum superposition to improve our coffee maker for the next challenge." The galaxy was learning an important lesson. In the face of impossible odds, humans didn't just survive, they revolutionized the very concept of what survival meant. The news spread across the galaxy like a supernova. Humans had not only survived a Class 7 world but had established a permanent research station there. As the competition prepared for the Class 8 challenge, something unprecedented was happening among the competing species. The galaxy was beginning to imitate humanity's approach to survival, and it was transforming the entire competition. Maya noticed the change during the pre-challenge briefing. Where once the other species had kept to themselves, now the briefing room buzzed with interspecies discussions. A group of Meridians was excitedly sharing their modified environmental suits, designed for comfort rather than just survival. Nearby, an Arcturian team was demonstrating their new portable shelter system, clearly inspired by the human team's adaptable designs. "I believe we've started a revolution," Wild Jim remarked, watching as a Vulgarian engineer proudly showed off what appeared to be their version of a quantum-stabilized cooking station. "They're not just copying our technology, they're adopting our philosophy." The Class 8 Challenge world made its predecessors look like paradise vacation spots. The planet was caught in the gravitational pull of 3 different black holes, creating zones where spacetime twisted into impossible geometries. The surface was bombarded by radiation from a dying star, and the atmosphere consisted primarily of metallic plasma. But as the teams prepared for deployment, something remarkable happened. Instead of retreating into their individual ships, the various species began to gather in the human team's hangar bay. Representatives from every competing team arrived, carrying their own equipment and innovations. "We have been studying your methods," announced the Meridian team leader, their crystalline form shimmering with determination. "You have shown us that survival is not merely about enduring, it is about adapting, growing, and even finding joy in the challenge. We wish to collaborate." Elena looked at the gathering of alien engineers and scientists, her eyes bright with possibility. "You know what this means. With our combined knowledge and approaches, we could actually colonize a Class 8 world," Marcus finished, already examining the Arcturians' advanced material synthesis technology with professional interest. What followed was the greatest example of interspecies cooperation the galaxy had ever witnessed. The human team's hangar bay transformed into an impromptu workshop where dozens of species worked together, combining their unique perspectives and technologies. Elena's atmospheric processors were integrated with meridian crystal matrices, creating systems that could stabilize even plasma-based environments. Marcus and the Vulgarians developed new forms of matter manipulation that could withstand the gravitational distortions. Zara found herself leading a diverse group of aliens in what she called extreme environment appreciation sessions. The key, she explained to her attentive audience, is to stop seeing these conditions as obstacles to overcome. They're opportunities to experience something entirely new. The council observers watched in amazement as traditional competitors became collaborators. Wild Jim worked with xenobiologists from various species, studying how different forms of life adapted to extreme conditions. Their combined research was already revolutionizing the field of survival science. When the teams finally descended to the Class 8 world, they did so not as separate competitors but as a unified force. The human base camp design served as a central hub, with each species adding their own innovations and improvements. The Meridian's crystalline technology helped shield against the intense radiation, while Arcturian gravity manipulators created stable zones within the black hole's influence. "Look at this," Maya said to her team one day, watching as a group of young aliens participated in what they called gravity diving, using the black hole's gravitational effects for a controlled recreational activity. "We're not just teaching them to survive. We're teaching them to live." The transformation wasn't limited to the competition. News of the unprecedented cooperation spread throughout galactic civilization. Stories of humans turning Deathworlds into thriving outposts, of finding joy and opportunity in the most hostile environments, became legendary. Species that had once viewed Earth as a backwater world began sending observers to learn the human way of adaptation. "We've received an interesting request," Maya announced during a team meeting. "The Galactic Council wants to establish a permanent academy for extreme environment adaptation. They want us to help design the curriculum." "An academy?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess, they want to focus on survival protocols and emergency procedures." "Actually," Maya smiled, "they specifically requested that we include what they called the human element, our ability to transform survival situations into opportunities for growth and community building." The impact of humanity's approach extended far beyond the competition. Species that had once limited themselves to perfectly tailored environments began to explore and adapt. Worlds that had been dismissed as uninhabitable were reconsidered through the lens of human innovation. Even the Class 8 world, which should have been impossible to inhabit, was becoming something unprecedented, a thriving outpost where multiple species worked together, combining their knowledge and abilities in ways never before imagined. The human team's base camp had evolved into a sprawling complex where atmosphere processors worked alongside crystal matrices, and gravity manipulators danced with quantum stabilizers. "You know what the best part is?" Zara asked one evening, as they watched a sunset that twisted through multiple dimensions thanks to the black hole's influence. "We're not just showing them how to survive anywhere. We're showing them how to make anywhere feel like home." As they prepared for the final challenge, the human team realized they had achieved something far greater than just proving their species' capability. They had sparked a fundamental change in how the galaxy approached hostile environments, and in doing so, had opened up infinite new possibilities for all species. "Ready for Class 9?" Maya asked her now expanded team, which included specialists from various species who had embraced the human way. "Actually," Wild Jim replied, looking up from a discussion with a group of alien scientists, "I don't think we should call them challenges anymore. How about opportunities?" The galaxy was learning that the true measure of advancement wasn't just in surviving hostile environments, it was in finding ways to make those environments home. And in this, humanity was proving to be the greatest teachers the universe had ever known. The Class 9 Challenge world defied description. It existed in a region of space where reality had worn thin, where the fundamental forces of the universe behaved more like suggestions than laws. The planet's surface was a constantly shifting maze of antimatter storms and probability cascades, where cause and effect had a peculiarly flexible relationship with time. In the observation deck of the Combined Species Command ship, Maya stood with representatives from every competing team, watching the swirling chaos below. What had started as a competition had evolved into something far more significant, a unified effort to push the boundaries of what was possible. According to all our models, sustainable existence on this world is impossible, stated the Meridian chief scientist, their crystalline form reflecting the weird light from below. Even with our combined technologies, the probability of success is. Let me guess, Elena interrupted, her prosthetic arm making adjustments to their new unified environmental systems, astronomically low. Actually, the Meridian's form flickered with what might have been amusement, I was going to say, human. The term had taken on a new meaning in galactic parlance. Human no longer meant just the species from Earth, it had become synonymous with achieving the impossible through a combination of innovation, adaptability, and what many species had come to call recreational madness. The combined team's preparation area looked more like a cross between a high-tech laboratory and an adventure sports center. Arcturian gravity manipulators sat beside human quantum surfboards. Meridian crystal matrices interfaced with Elena's atmospheric processors. Even the Vulgarians, traditionally the most conservative species, had contributed their own versions of what they called extreme environment entertainment systems. The real challenge, Wild Jim explained to the assembled teams, isn't just surviving in an environment where probability itself is unstable. It's finding ways to use these conditions to our advantage. He gestured to the massive display showing their sensor readings. Every antimatter storm, every probability cascade, they're not obstacles. They're tools waiting to be used. Marcus, who had been working with a diverse group of alien chefs, added, and maybe we can finally perfect that probability-shifted soufflé we've been working on. The descent to the surface was unlike anything they had previously attempted. Their ships had to navigate through layers of reality where the laws of physics changed without warning. Zara, leading the navigation team, had developed a new approach she called probability surfing. Rather than fighting against the chaos, they rode the waves of possibility, letting the ship exist in multiple states simultaneously until they found the one that worked. Their landing zone was a region where reality remained relatively stable for microseconds at a time. The combined team moved with practiced precision, deploying their equipment in perfect synchronization. The human design philosophy of adaptable, modular systems had been merged with the best technologies from across the galaxy, creating something entirely new. Probability anchors established, announced the Arcturian chief engineer. Reality stabilization at, well, as stable as anything can be here. The base that emerged was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It existed partially in normal space, partially in probability space, and somewhat in dimensions that didn't have proper names yet. The human team's original concept of making anywhere feel like home had evolved into making home exist everywhere simultaneously. Within days, they had achieved what the Council had deemed theoretically impossible, a sustainable presence on a Class 9 world. But true to human nature, they didn't stop there. Zara and a team of multi-species adrenaline enthusiasts developed ways to safely ride the antimatter storms. Wild Jim and his xenobiologist colleagues discovered life forms that existed in probability superposition, leading to entirely new understandings of what constituted life. Elena's workshop became a hub of constant innovation, where engineers from dozens of species worked together to push the boundaries of what their combined technologies could achieve. We're not just surviving here, she explained to a council observer who had bravely come to witness their achievements. We're learning to thrive in conditions that our separate species would never have dreamed possible. The council itself was undergoing a transformation. What had started as a competition to test survival skills had evolved into a collaborative effort to expand the very definition of habitable space. The human approach, seeing challenges as opportunities, treating hostile environments as playgrounds for innovation, had fundamentally changed how the galaxy approached exploration and adaptation. We've received a proposal from the Council, Maya announced during one of their regular multi-species team meetings. They want to redesign the entire classification system for extreme environments. They say our achievements here have rendered the old system obsolete. Let me guess, Zara grinned, her suit covered in the iridescent residue of her latest probability surfing session. They want to add more classes beyond 15. Actually, Maya replied, they want to remove the word death from Deathworld classifications entirely. Their reasoning is that we've proven no world is truly uninhabitable, it's just waiting for the right approach. The final weeks of what had once been a competition became a celebration of what different species could achieve together. The Class 9 world, once considered an impossible challenge, had become a testing ground for new forms of civilization. The base had grown into a sprawling complex where probability storms were harnessed for power, antimatter cascades were used for transportation, and reality shifts were treated as just another natural resource to be utilized. As their time on the world drew to a close, Maya stood with her now vastly expanded team, watching as groups of mixed species worked, played, and innovated together. You know, she said to Elena, when we started this, we thought we were going to show the galaxy what humans could do. Elena nodded, watching as a young Meridian attempted to teach a Vulgarian how to surf probability waves. Instead, we showed them what everyone could do if they just stopped being afraid of the impossible. The legacy of their achievement would reshape galactic civilization. The human approach to extreme environments, the combination of innovation, adaptability, and joy in the face of incredible challenges, became a cornerstone of interstellar exploration and development. Species that had once limited themselves to safe, predictable worlds began to venture out, carrying with them the lessons learned from their time with humans. The competition that had started as a test of survival had become a testament to the power of cooperation, innovation, and the uniquely human ability to find joy in the most unlikely places. As Maya filed her final report to the council, she included a quote that she felt summed up everything they had achieved. The true measure of a civilization isn't in its ability to survive hostile environments, but in its capacity to transform them into opportunities for growth, discovery, and even joy. In teaching the galaxy to see Deathworlds as challenges to be embraced rather than obstacles to be feared, humanity has given the universe its greatest gift, the courage to make anywhere feel like home.